Hi there. I want to talk to you about voter turnout and the popular vote, as they call it in the media. Um, we've just had an election. The Labour Party won 63% of the seats in our parliament, 412 seats. Um, and they won what is called, or what is being described as 33.9% of the popular vote. Now, having looked at various media organisations, even the BBC, they write down. I saw two numbers on there. One said there were something like 47.5 million registered voters this year. That's the number of people who have gone through the process of registering to vote. So if they wanted to on election day, they could go down and they could vote. 47.5 million people registered to vote. That's out of around 52 million, 52.5 million people in the UK who are eligible to vote. So that's people above the age of 18. Those are people with the correct legal status to be able to vote in our country. So there's quite a lot of people, quite a high percentage of people who can actually vote registered to vote. Now, when a party such as Labour win 33.9% of the popular vote, as it's described, what does that mean? Now, I'd like to tell you that 33.9%, despite being what I saw on a BBC website, a number being underneath the 47.5 million registered voters, 33.9% is not 33.9% of registered voters. It's not of eligible voters. It's not of people in the country, as is often, I think, is quite easy for people to think when they see a number 33.9% of people voted for this party. It's not 33.9% of 69 million people. It's 33.9% of people that actually voted, of which in this election we saw a very low voter turnout, ranging in, I think, the mid 50s, around 50 to 60%, 55% voter turnout. So 28.5 million people voted. So let's just say 34% of the popular vote means 34% of 28.5 million. Now that is not a very impressive number. In fact, that's about a third, and the number says it's 9.66 million people voted for Labour. Okay, so in 2019, when 10.3 million people voted for Labour, they received one third of the seats, around 200 seats. That was of a higher proportion. That was around, I think, 32 million people voted in that election. So even though they received more votes, the actual proportion, the popular vote, was 32%. Now this year it's around 34%. That's because it's 34% of 28.5 million people. Now that does mean, essentially, our government, who won by a landslide victory, they won 412 seats. That's enough to pass basically anything they want to through Parliament, including with some rebellions. Say they want to pass something that really disfavours Scotland. They can lose 30, 40 MPs in Scotland, bam, like that. They can lose them all in Wales, and they can still have a few rebels within England, and they'll still pass the vote in Parliament. Everyone else votes against it. Say a fifth of the Labour Party vote against the bill that the Labour government, Keir Starmer and his cabinet, want to put through. Even if that happens, they will still pass the law. And that means our laws are being made by a group of people, if they were to have a fifth of their party rebel, a group of people that represents literally about 10% of the population. I think the percentage is, what have I got here? I think it's 14.2% of the British public overall voted for Labour. If we're just going on eligible voters, that's around 18% of all people who can vote, legally allowed to vote. Around 18% of them voted for a government that has absolute power. This doesn't seem very democratic or fair to me.